Hello friends and fellow woodworkers, welcome to my kitchen. As a woodworker, you know you want your tools, as we say, razor sharp, so they'll do the job that's they're intended to. So what I want to show you today is a kitchen device that I converted into a sharpening station. So to get good sharp tools, you don't have to look any farther than your kitchen. Anyway, I'll zoom in here a little closer and show you what I've come up with. In most kitchens, you'll find a food processor, and if they've been used a lot, often the bowl part will wear out, but the rest of it is in good condition. Or if you could probably just use one that's hasn't been it's still usable, because you're not really going to have to destroy it at all. Anyway, the nice part about this food processor is the range of speeds. You can have to very slow and any speed that you want in between. It'll go up actually way higher than you'll ever want to use it for, but you may find a use for that someday, I'm not sure. I use it, what we're going to do today will be used in the slower speeds. A lot of the commercial sharpening devices you get aren't really slow enough, but this you'll be able to get it, with one of these you'll be able to get it as slow as you want it. In order to get this to work without the bowl in, there's a little switch inside here, and what I've done is I've taken a nail and shaped the end of it and pushed it in there to push that little switch in there. There's different ways you could probably do it, but then I just stuck a piece of wood in there to hold the nail in there, and that way it's always on. Okay. Let's just take a look at this, because I had to modify this from the original. The original one, of course, is just plastic here, and I was using it for something else, a lathe project I was doing where I dripped paint dye onto the wood, and under speed it would spray out. Anyway, it got so hot that this melted here. So I've taken a piece of tubing, a little piece of steel there, and just epoxied it on there. You can see where it's melted a little bit here. So I think the best idea is to modify this right away. If I probably had to do it again, I would mount a couple ball bearings on here. So I'll show you now what I had to do to mount that. It could be used just like that on there without this particular part here. But what I've done here is cut a piece of wood to go over the base here, and then glued it to a thicker piece. And then I've kind of beveled it, made a bevel on it there so it wasn't so blocky. And then that will fit right over top of there. And push it down. There we go. It's a little, I've had it for several years, so it's the wood shrunk there a little bit. Now, this, if you were making one of these, you'd mount this base so that piece of wood is on there, and then your block of wood here would be cut out, and with a hole that this would just slide into. And then you would slide it, have this onto here, slide it together with glue under here, so then it's perfectly centered in on the drive post there. So anyway, to make this, after I had that heat up there, when I foolishly used it on a higher speed there, I'm using some sort of lubricant on here. This is lithium grease thing here. I'll just put it there. Then so then that'll be lubricated. I also drilled a hole in here and you can add a little oil or grease in those holes there. And that will make this nice and stiff. It's held on there quite well. And then, okay, so that's basic modification here. That puts a lot of strength on there, doesn't wiggle around. It doesn't run quite as smooth as it did originally before I melted it there still, but it's usable the way it is. Then the next thing I did is take a piece of plywood. This is kind of some density board with some wood on it. That was a scrap. First one I made was with plywood, and then as we're going to glue on 6-inch sanding pads that have a sticky back on there. So a hole in the center that matches this diameter here, and 2 little cutouts that you can see there on each side to go over those little things. And that will just snap. If you cut it accurate, it'll just sit right on top of there. And then it'll just pop off whenever you need it. Now what I did here is I took my sanding disc and pushed in the center to get to where the center of that was. Then I have a punch here. Now I just punched out a little hole. And then I have a number of these discs that have different, with a sticky back. If you didn't have sticky back ones, the sticky back is a little too sticky, I think. Can't seem to get it apart. Okay, I don't know what got into that one, but I actually had to get another one. Whenever you want to do something for real on video, something will also go wrong. But anyway, I got another one here, and got the back peeled off okay. Then we'll just center that on top of that and press it down. As long as you get it reasonably on there, it's okay. Now these little parts here, you can, if you want, you can cut those out. If you're only using one side of the board, you don't really have to cut those out. Okay, so that's all cut out there. Now these other ones here, I just had different grits of paper here. These are just basically a sandpaper type stuff. So I put one grit on one side, another type of sandpaper on the other side. These could be used for the rough work, or maybe sanding some wood also. This could be used for wood sanding. Here's more dark emery type silicon carbide sticky back paper. I put a sheet on both sides on this one here, so if one gets a little dull and you need a fresh cut, just flip it over and go for it. And then these will peel off here a lot easier than I had to get the butt backing off of this one. So this is the finest grit. I believe there's 500 grit on here. This one is I believe 320, and then these are 120 and 100. So another thing that I found that could be used on this is an actual grinding wheel. This is a 6-inch grinding wheel, which is readily available. And this can put a little plug in here with a hole there, and then that will just fit right over top of there. Now in this case, it won't go down over the ears there. So what I have been doing is when I use the grinding wheel, I put one of these on. That'll snap on there, and then I just set that on top of there. Okay, and this is for the actual shaping here. Just get that a little closer there. Okay, and let's just take this scraper here, for example, here. But before you do that, we'll just turn this up a little higher. The grinder's running. There's several ways of facing your stone. One is using a diamond tool here. I have this other block here that's must be some sort of cinder, and that works fairly well too to shape up your stone. It's a little bit wobbly here from when I melted that, but you can use any speed you want. The majority of your shaping will be done on a regular grind, but this is just fine shaping. And I have got sparks from it too. You can see a few sparks coming off of there. But you can use that as a slow speed. And as you progress to the inside, it'll actually, you'll get different speeds as well. Okay. And that just seems to sit on there, and you're not using it under extreme pressure or anything when you're grinding. You're just kind of honing. So grindstone, one of these white cool grindstones works quite well there. Okay, so this one here is a little coarse, but let's try it on a little piece of wood here just for the heck of it. Put that up a little higher. You got something you want to shape with wood or model making or something like that. It's a good little sanding device there. And of course that can pop off. You can use a different grit quite quickly. It's good for small parts, model making, etc. Okay, let's take this one off, and I'll put this little darker one on here, and then we'll hone it up. Oops, this side isn't cut out, but the little part here isn't cut out. That'll fit on there really well here. And it's just a matter of I think that was on quite right. No, that wasn't on quite right. I made it so it would fit fairly snug. That's a lot smoother. It was bouncing a little bit there. If you use silicon carbide waterproof paper, you could use a little moisture on there too, but As you can see that, I don't know if you can or not. Trying to get the light on it here, but the cutting edge is polished up quite well on there. So we can, of course, things like chisels, works very well on chisels. I never had a sharp plane till I made this project. And here's something I was making. It's kind of going to be a skew type knife used for chip carving. I was watching Fancy Chip carve, and she uses a skew knife. So I started making one of these. Shape it on the grinder, and then this sharpens it up very, very nicely. So it takes a touch and you change your speed. You need to change your speed. Okay, what else can you sharpen? Got a whole set of these wood carving tools. I've never used them. I thought I got them at one time as I thought if I went on a trip somewhere I could carry these along with me and do some woodworking when I was away from home. But just about anything you could sharpen and hone up. But I guess I'd have to take my fancy little cutter here along with me, but it wouldn't take up much space. Okay, so there's quite a variety of things to do, and while you're doing it, if you're in your kitchen, sharpen your wife's knives up a little bit, small knives. You get a really sharp edge on a small knife. Okay, this is the little ones that's a little coarser. Here's some 500 grit paper. Let's put this one on and a little bit more polishing there. Okay. We'll go back through this here. Polish up this plane blade. You could make some sort of device to get the same angle each time, but you're not removing a lot of material, so just for the fine edge. Okay, throw this chisel on here. Oh, we'll give my carving tool here an extra little polish here. And if you can see that, I've got a mirror finish on there. It's the mirror finish in no time at all. But my technique of sharpening here, how I hold the tool, etc., may not be that great, but my main purpose of here is to show you this simple little device that makes a very useful sharpening or sanding device. I found it very successful. I haven't had such sharp tools till I came up with this little idea here. Anyway, thanks for looking. It may give you some ideas to utilize a food processor here to make a sharpening station for your shop. So thanks for looking, and hope to have some other money-saving ideas on my channel here before too long.